Jen, can you grab the bleach from under the sink on your way out? My aunt calls from the living room, not even bothering to look up from her magazine. I stop vacuuming. I stand there for a second, just holding the handle. I'm not leaving yet. I still have to do the upstairs bathrooms. My cousin doesn't even turn around from the couch. She just laughs a little and says, "Seriously? We're trying to have a family dinner in here. It's kind of weird having the help just hovering around like this. Don't you have your own place to go clean or something?" I didn't say anything back. I just tightened my grip on that vacuum handle and kept going. They had absolutely no idea who was really standing in their living room. My name is Jenna. I'm 34, and I need you to stay with me for this one, because what I'm about to tell you is the kind of story that took 7 years of silence to build and about 45 seconds to detonate. I'm a commercial real estate consultant now. I find undervalued properties, I analyze them, I help investment groups acquire them, and I make very good money doing it. But back when this story starts, I was just the broke cousin, the one who cleaned houses on weekends to cover tuition while I finished grad school at night. The one who showed up with her own cleaning supplies in a reusable bag because buying the cheap stuff herself was still cheaper than whatever my aunt charged for using her products. My family, and I mean my Aunt Linda, my Uncle Ray, and my two cousins, Brittany and Derek, they were the ones everybody talked about. The house on Maple Street was beautiful. 4 bedrooms, original hardwood floors, a big backyard with a stone patio, 2 cars in the driveway that got upgraded every 3 years. Instagram photos from Cabo, from Miami, from some resort in Turks and Caicos that looked like a screensaver. They were living the life. At least, that's what it looked like from the outside. I was the opposite of all that. I drove a 2009 Honda Civic with a crack running up the right side of the windshield. I wore secondhand clothes. I ate peanut butter sandwiches at my desk between classes. And every Sunday, I drove to that house on Maple Street and cleaned it for $100. They always handed me that cash the same exact way, like they were doing me the biggest favor in the world. My aunt would peel the bills off slowly, hand them over with this little smile, and say something like, "You're so good at this, Jen. Honestly, you have a gift." A gift. Like I was born to scrub their toilet. My mom always told me, "Jen, a good head on your shoulders is worth more than any car they're driving." And I believed her. But believing something doesn't make the sting go away. Not completely. Here's the thing, though, and this is the part they never understood. Every single Sunday I spent in that house, I wasn't just cleaning. I was listening. I was watching. I was learning how they thought about money, about property, about value. I was sitting in the middle of their financial life every week, and they treated me like furniture, like I wasn't even there. That was their first mistake. So let me take you to the Sunday that changed everything. It was a regular morning, cold outside, warm in the kitchen. The smell of that lavender dish soap they ordered online filled the whole room as I wiped down the counters. My aunt was in the living room, on the phone, not even trying to be quiet about it. She was talking to a realtor, and she was excited. I could hear it in her voice all the way from the kitchen. When she hung up, she walked in, poured herself a coffee, and sighed like she had just solved some massive problem. "It is such a relief," she said. "We're going to clear almost $1 million from this place. Can you imagine?" My Uncle Ray looked up from his newspaper. "It's time. This place is too much to maintain." He looked right at me when he said it, right at the sponge in my hand, like I was proof of how inconvenient the house was. I set the sponge down, slowly. "You're selling?" I asked. My heart was already doing something strange in my chest. "The house on Maple Street?" Brittany walked in from the hallway and rolled her eyes. "Obviously. What's it to you? It's not like you could afford the down payment on the garage, Jenna." I looked at her, looked at all of them. "I know," I said. "Just asking." 3 words, completely calm. Not a single thing in my face gave me away. What they didn't know was that for 7 years, I had been quietly saving every dollar from every house I'd ever cleaned, every scholarship I'd won, every tax refund I'd ever gotten. I had been investing carefully, learning obsessively, and building something they couldn't see because they had already decided I had nothing worth looking at. That Sunday, everything clicked into place.
And that is where part 1 ends. Because what came next, what they did over the following weeks, I want you to understand exactly who these people were before I tell you what I did about it. Stay with me. Part 2 is where it gets real.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, here's what you need to know. My family was selling the house my grandfather built. They thought it was just a transaction. I knew it was an opportunity, and they had no idea I was already moving. But before I tell you what I did, I need to tell you what they did, because the betrayals, and I'm going to call them exactly what they were, they came fast and they came hard. The first one happened within days of that Sunday morning conversation. They called a family meeting to discuss the sale. I didn't get a call, I didn't get a text. Nobody reached out to me at all. I found out because my cousin Derek accidentally added me to a group chat he meant to send to everyone else. I sat there and watched the messages come in, one after another. They were talking about pricing, about timing, about which realtor to go with, and then Derek typed, "Don't worry about inviting Jenna, she doesn't get a vote, she's the cleaning lady." And everybody left. Little ha-ha emojis, like it was the funniest thing in the world. I read every single message. I didn't reply. I turned my phone face down on my kitchen table, took a breath, and went back to my laptop, where I had 3 property analysis spreadsheets open. I kept working. The second one was more public. It was a neighborhood block party, one of those early summer evenings where everybody brings something and stands around in someone's backyard. My aunt spotted a couple she knew were interested in buying the house. She waved me over with this huge, warm smile, like we were the closest family in the world. Come here," she said. "This is my niece Jenna." She put her arm around my shoulder. I actually thought for 1 second she was going to say something real. Instead, she said, "She is an absolute wizard with a mop. Honestly, if you ever need help keeping your new place clean, she's your girl." The couple smiled at me the way people smile when they feel sorry for you and don't know how to show it. That tight, polite smile that doesn't reach the eyes. I smiled right back, wide and easy, because I was already doing math in my head. Square footage, comparable sales in the neighborhood, estimated renovation costs. I was running numbers while my aunt was using me as a party trick. The third betrayal was the boldest thing they ever did. About 2 weeks before the open house, my Uncle Ray called me, not to catch up, not to apologize for any of it. He called to ask me if I would clean the house one last time before the showing. For free. He actually said, "It's for the family, Jen. Help us put our best foot forward. Get the best price." He said it like it was the most reasonable request in the world. I said yes immediately. No hesitation, no attitude. Because I needed one more walkthrough of that property, and they just handed it to me. Here is what actually happened during that cleaning. I started in the basement. I wasn't sweeping, I was checking the foundation walls, running my hand along the concrete, looking for cracks or settling that would affect the structural assessment. Then I went to the attic. I wasn't dusting, I was examining the roof supports, estimating the age of the insulation, calculating what a full replacement would run. I moved through every single room in that house with a notepad in my back pocket, writing down numbers, measurements, observations, repair costs, projected value after renovation. I wasn't the cleaning lady that day. I was a real estate consultant doing a complete property assessment for free on their behalf without them ever knowing. And here's what I knew by the time I was done. This house was deeply undervalued, not because it wasn't worth the asking price. It was worth every penny of it and more. But my family was in a hurry. They needed the cash fast to fund my cousin's startup before the window closed. That urgency made them soft on the negotiation, and soft sellers are exactly what I'd spent 7 years learning how to find. I also knew something more personal. This wasn't just a property to me. My grandfather, a man named Earl who worked with his hands his entire life and never once complained about it, built this house from the ground up in 1974. He laid those hardwood floors himself. He carved that arch above the kitchen doorway with his own tools. He built something meant to last, and the people who inherited it had spent 20 years letting it quietly fall apart while they focused on looking successful at neighborhood block parties.
I called Diana that same night. Diana was a real estate attorney I'd met 3 years earlier at a professional networking event. Sharp, direct, no nonsense, and completely unimpressed by people who tried to intimidate her. She had been watching this deal develop from the sidelines, and she was ready. They're listing at $950, I told her. I was standing in my kitchen, completely calm. That's worth that, maybe more with the right updates, but they're rushing. I want to go in at $850, cash. There was a pause on her end. Cash? You're actually ready to move on this? Diana, I said, I have been ready for a long time. And I meant every word of it. 7 years of discipline, 7 years of investing while everyone assumed I was just getting by, 7 years of being underestimated, underpaid, and overlooked. It had all been building towards exactly this moment. My family, feeling confident and in control, accepted a competing offer of $890 from a young couple. They celebrated. My uncle called it a clean deal. My aunt told the story at dinner like she had just outsmarted the entire real estate market. 9 days later, the couple's financing fell apart. The deal died. The market was starting to cool, and suddenly my family had a house sitting empty with no offer, no backup plan, and a realtor who was losing patience. They had no idea that Diana had already drafted our offer. They had no idea it had been sitting in a folder, ready to go for over a week. They'd forgotten, completely forgotten, about the one person who knew that house better than any buyer who had ever walked through it. They forgot about the one holding the mop. Part 3 is where we walk into that office. Stay right there.
The meeting was on a Tuesday afternoon. The real estate agent's office was small and quiet. It smelled like printer ink and old coffee. There was a round clock on the wall, and every tick felt louder than it should have been in that silence. My family was already seated when I arrived. My Aunt Linda had her hands folded on the table, but her fingers kept moving, picking at her rings. My Uncle Ray was checking his phone every 40 seconds. My cousin Brittany was staring at the wall. Derek had his arms crossed and his jaw tight. They looked like people who had been arguing in the car on the way over and hadn't quite stopped yet. The agent, a man named Phil, who wore a blue tie and looked like he had seen every version of this kind of meeting before, sat down across from them and straightened his papers. "Okay," Phil said. "Good news. We have a new offer on the table. Full asking price, strong buyer. They want to sign today." My uncle leaned back in his chair and exhaled for the first time in probably a week. "There it is," he said, nodding. "Told you it would work out." My aunt let out a small breath. Brittany uncrossed her arms. The tension in the room dropped by about half. Then the door opened. I walked in wearing a simple navy blazer over a white shirt. Clean, sharp, nothing flashy. Diana walked in right behind me. Dark blazer, leather folder under her arm, glasses pushed up on her head. She looked like exactly what she was, someone who closed deals for a living and did not lose. My cousin Brittany looked up. Her face did something complicated. "Jenna?" She said my name like it didn't make sense in the room. "What are you doing here? We're kind of in the middle of something." I walked to the empty chair directly across from them and pulled it out. I sat down, set my hands flat on the table, and looked at her. "I know you are," I said. "I'm here for the signing." My aunt laughed. It was a short, sharp sound, more confused than amused. "Don't be ridiculous, Jenna. Go wait outside." Phil cleared his throat. He looked down at his papers. He looked back up. The room was very quiet. "The buyer on this offer," he said carefully, "is Miss Jenna Hartwell." Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The clock on the wall kept ticking. My uncle's face went completely white. My cousin Brittany's mouth opened and just stayed that way. My aunt's hands went perfectly still on the table for the first time since I walked in. "You can't afford this." My aunt's voice came out quiet and shaky. "This is some kind of mistake. This is a joke." Diana set the folder on the table and slid it across without a single word. Then she spoke. "My client is prepared to wire full funds today. Full asking price, no contingencies, no conditions, no waiting." The room was so quiet I could hear the air conditioning running through the vent above us. I looked at my aunt, then at my uncle, then at Brittany and Derek, one at a time, until every single one of them had looked me in the eyes. And then I picked up the pen. You wanted to sell the house. You just didn't think the buyer was going to be the one who spent 3 years scrubbing your floors. I held the pen over the paper. The documents are right in front of you. Everything is in order. Shall we get started? I signed every page, calmly, completely. The only sound in that room was the pen moving across paper. When it was done, I thanked Phil, stood up, and walked out. No speech, no dramatic pause at the door, no backwards glance. I just left. The renovation took 4 months. I kept every single thing my grandfather built that deserved to be kept. The hardwood floors he laid by hand, still there. The arch above the kitchen doorway he carved himself, still there. I updated the kitchen, modernized both bathrooms, replaced the roof, redid the landscaping, and repainted the whole exterior a deep, warm shade of white that made the house look like it had just taken a full breath for the first time in years. When it was finished, it was the most beautiful house on the street, and it was mine. Word got around, the way it always does in families. My aunt called twice, my uncle sent a message through a cousin on the other side of the family. Brittany texted me asking if she could come see the renovation. She actually used the word reconnect. I thought about that word for a long time. I politely said no, every time. Because here is what I know now, standing in those rooms, walking those floors my grandfather laid, looking out the windows he put in with his own hands. I know that being underestimated is only a disadvantage if you let it stop you, if you let it convince you that their ceiling is your ceiling too. They handed me a mop and $100 and thought they knew exactly what I was. They had already written my whole story before I had even started writing it myself. But I was paying attention the whole time, to every conversation they had in front of me like I wasn't there, to every crack in that foundation and every board in that attic. I was building my answer, quietly, for 7 years, while they were busy deciding what I was worth. They gave me the mop. I used it to open the door, and now I own everything inside it. If you have ever been the one they dismissed, the one they laughed about in group chats, the one they introduced as the help at their own parties, and you are out there right now, quietly building something they cannot see yet, I want you to hear this clearly. Keep going. Do not explain yourself. Do not announce your plans. Just keep building. Because the moment you walk through that door, nothing they ever said about you will matter anymore. Subscribe and drop your story in the comments. I want to know where you are in your journey. I read every single one. And if this story meant something to you today, hit that like, click hype so someone else who needs to hear this can find it, and I will see you in the next one. Thank you for watching. Every single minute of it.